All right, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Soft Elbows. We're joined today by the one and only president of the DMV WSO committee, not the board, the committee. Is that right? Did I get that right, Brian?
That's true. We've had a rebranding.
This is for anyone who doesn't know, and how could you not? We make fun of him constantly. This is Brian Leung. Brian is an athlete, a master's level athlete.
He's a sponsored athlete.
He's the DMV's premier sponsored athlete. We'll get to that in a little bit for anyone who's confused, and we understand. He's also a coach. He coaches for CHFP. In his spare time, he does lawyer things for someone. And also, this might be the end. It's hard to say. He controls whether this podcast exists today or tomorrow or ever. Abby, how are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. I'm wearing my Taylor Swift sweater, and you're wearing your Chiefs shirt. So look at us. Look at us.
Look at us. And Brian is wearing...
That's a barbell. I'm strong. I'm an athlete. Remember, I'm an athlete.
That's right. Is the quotation marks for masters or for athlete?
Oh, that's a good point. In my heart, I'm not actually a master's athlete. I'm approximately 26.
Approximately.
Yeah.
It's a loose understanding of age and time and distance.
What is it?
Abby, Brian was super prepared for this interview. He, in fact, sent me a list of topics that he wants to cover. The first item on the list was how great of a job we're doing with this podcast.
Aw, that's so nice.
I know. The second item on the list was his top 5 least favorite decisions that USAW as a national entity has made in the last year, which I thought was a little controversial given his role. But, whatever. We're here for him.
That's controversy is what we do on this podcast, though. So he's on brand. Yeah.
I'm glad you feel that way. The third item on his list was his most despised DMV athletes and coaches, which he wanted to discuss in detail. And I said, Brian, are you sure? And he goes, I don't know shit.
Long list. Long list.
It's a long list, and we're going to get to all of it.
Big reputation.
Steve's number 1. Steve's actually the start and the finish of the list.
I'm surprised it's not Big Jake.
I don't know. Brian, have you ever met Big Jake?
I've met Big Jake. I've met Big Jake.
Please, just for the sake of irony, please tell me that you met him at Nationals or something. That would be...
No, my understanding is that he's never been at Nationals. Yeah.
No, never.
Before we get into all the topics we're going to cover with Brian, I did want to make another pitch, one final pitch. This show is going to release on Tuesday. This coming Sunday is the Just Strong Open, which will be held at Petworth Fitness in DC. It's hosted by DMV Weightlifting. It is a female
DC
only
weightlifting.
DC weightlifting. You said DMV weightlifting.
Not DMV. We're not doing it.
We haven't even started
together,
that club yet. Wow. I'm just like forecasting things into the future. That is correct. DC Weightlifting is an actual club in our area, and that is the club that will be hosting this meet. It's a great meet. It is a meet only for female lifters. It is a good meet for anyone who is newer to the sport or newer to competing in the sport and just wants to kind of like get a feel for how the flow goes and things like that. I don't know whether their registration has closed, but I am confident that between the connections of the three of us, if you want in, we'll get you in. They will find a way to squeeze you in. And Kelly probably will yell at me because I'm sure she's in charge of creating the start list and things like that. But you heard it from me first. Kelly does not mind. If you want to register for this meet on Saturday and compete on Sunday, Kelly will make it happen.
Yeah. She also definitely wouldn't mind if you felt like volunteering. I know they're looking for volunteers.
That's a great point. Yeah. That is a great point. Brian, do you remember your first weightlifting meet?
I do remember my first weightlifting meet. It was BASA. It was the Rosedale.
Okay.
Back in 2020. I almost withdrew from that meet. I'm so dumb, as we all know. But
that's the sentence right there.
And that's today's show, everybody. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Love talking to you guys. No, so I'm an idiot. I had no idea really how to prepare for this. And so the night before, I'm like, I'm going to take a salt bath. A salt bath feels like the move here. And so I take a salt bath and I'm in it for like an hour because that's how these work. And so I get through my snatches and it's fine. And I take the empty barbell for clean and jerks. And both of my quads immediately just like seize up. They're cramping. I'm like literally just rolling around on the platform, trying to do whatever I can to like move. And Ambria was counting for me and she's like, look, we gotta like, what are we doing here, Brian? What are we doing? And so she's like, look, we can just withdraw. Like it's fine. You can withdraw. Like right now you can't even clean an empty barbell. And I'm like, no, it'll be fine. And then eventually I'm like, no, go ahead and withdraw me. So she's walking up to the marshal's table to withdraw me. And I was like, wait, Ambria, from the other side. I'm this obnoxious athlete at this thing, right? I'm rolling around on the platform. I'm screaming across the thing, just so obnoxious. And I'm like, Ambria, let's just send it. And so she pulls my number down to as low as we can go, given like what's already out on the platform or whatever. And I do like one warm up at 60 and one warm up at 80, and like off I go. And that's all I could do. And somebody gave me some sort of magic elixir. I don't know what was in it. I'll never know what was in it. They were just like, I'm going to put some of these powders in this thing here. Drink this. And so I drank it. I went out there. I did my clean and jerk. And it was way lower than, what like we were intended to do or whatever. And so then I come back, I immediately start rolling around like an idiot on the floor again, trying to uncramp my quads. And then we're like, that wasn't so bad. Let's get back on track. So with no additional warm-ups, I do one more pull, but we add like 15, 20 kilos onto the bar. And it's like, second attempt, off we go. Look, it's a local meet. Everybody's looking at me like this. Like, Dick is just going out there. He's messing with numbers. He's making 20 kilo jumps. He's pretending to be injured. Anyway, so I end up going 6 for 6 on that and qualified for Masters Nationals at my first meet. Ended up winning the division, closing out that session. It was fun. It was a good time.
This was, for anyone who's not aware, the story of Brian's first meet and the story of the first time Brian ever did MDMA. It was a great time. To Brian's employer, I'm sure you're watching, that was a joke. Brian's never done MDMA. He would never, definitely not.
It's fine. I'm in charge of legal. They can't fire me. I'm pretty sure.
Perfect. He qualified totally naturally. Also, I love two things about this story. One, I love any story that involves Ambria Watts, who, for anyone who doesn't know, is an incredibly strong weightlifter in this area. I believe she holds like national masters records. Is that correct?
Yeah, she holds a couple of American records, I think. Clean and jerk.
A couple of American records. Wonderful human being. I stopped listening after Brian mentioned her because like that was the highlight of the story for me. But then like I loosely in the corner of my brain, I heard Brian just drop in a humble brag, like, I went for 6 for 6 and I qualified for Masters Nationals. This was supposed to be a story about how like endearing I am, about like, oh, I almost messed this whole thing up. But instead, like I'm super strong and athletic. That's cool.
Look, it's hard to hold something that back sometimes. Like that was the restrained version, if we're going to be honest.
Abby, do you remember the story of your first meet?
Of course I do. I was, oh God, I did, so this was kind of ridiculous. Like I randomly, just in between my junior and senior year of college, like I had just learned like the basics of the split jerk and like I could power snatch on a good day. And I was just like, yeah, why not just do this competition in Pennsylvania? It was the Lehigh Valley Barbell Club put on this comp, and I ended up meeting like Juliana Riotto and Haley Reichert and all of Garage Strength, and like, man, I thought I knew what strong was, and then I met those girls, and I was like, holy fucking shit, like that's what? And so I knew that, I had something to chase, but yeah, I was this little. I think I was a 69 at the time, but like I had no idea about weight classes and cutting weight. I literally just went and just threw some weight around, and I didn't qualify for anything, and I didn't go 6 for 6. So my story wasn't nearly as like successful as Brian's, but man, I had fun. And I knew that that day that, cause that was kind of my last hurrah before I had to get back to track and field stuff. So, I kind of knew then and there. I was like, yeah, I'm going to start doing weightlifting as soon as I finish my senior year, because I couldn't just quit track and field the year before I graduated. I wanted to so bad. Sorry, I'm going to edit out some of these vulgarities that are coming out of my mouth. But
Brian, Right, wait, sorry, finish your story, and then I want to ask Brian a question.
I hated running so much by the time I got to that point, and like I was so over it, but I was too stubborn to quit. I was like, I can't not finish out my senior year running. I'll be miserable this whole time, but like screw it. And I just always had weightlifting at the light at the end of the tunnel there for me. But that's my story.
And now here you are.
And now here I am.
The queen of the DMV. No.
I wouldn't call myself that.
Right. Listen, we're just workshopping nicknames for everyone today. It's fine. Brian, legal question. It was brought to our attention after the last episode that maybe Abby and I were a little too liberal with the curse words.
Too candid.
Do we have like a quota? We're very goal-oriented people. If you can tell us, like, you get like a max, like 7 curse words per episode per host. Like, we'll meet that goal, but like, you got to set it for us. Like, what are we dealing with?
7 per host seems so high.
All right.
Per episode.
Oh, come on. We're consenting adults.
7 total per show? I don't know.
And like, how aggressive can these 7 be? Because like, I say,
yeah.
like,
Look,
how
I just
aggressive
don't want
are
my
we
mom
talking?
calling me at the end of this to be like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed in
Oh,
who
Brian's
you're
mom
associating
watches
with.
us.
Yeah, of course
all
she
right,
watches.
cool. We got
2 listeners.
You and
regularly.
Steve's mom can have watch parties together. Why not?
They do actually already, yeah.
We can
That's
talk
so
about what
cute.
disappointments we are. All right, so we're gonna try.
Like 3 per person seems reasonable.
3 per person
3?
seems reasonable.
3 F-bombs
But,
per
like,
person. Got it.
I think we may already
Make them count, Abby. Make them count. That's my challenge to you.
Say
Abby, can you
less.
put a counter? Can you put a counter at the bottom of the screen? And just like have it like ding up every
Yeah,
time?
I'll edit in a counter. That'll be funny.
All right. Before we get into Brian and like, you know, his life story and, you know, the manger he was born in or something, I wanted you guys.
I'm Jesus? Is that what you're telling me?
Listen,
you didn't use quite those words.
Brian, that was very presumptuous of you. Multiple people have been born in mangers. Like, I think that the fact that your mind went there is, you know, says a little bit about who we're talking to here.
You know?
Oh,
The restrained version.
I wanted your guys' thoughts on the. I don't think it happened this past week. I think it happened 2 weeks ago. The USAW released the like new national team structure where we got like the bronze level and the silver level and the gold level, and they made it for youths and juniors and seniors, but not masters. How's Brian supposed to get extra sponsorship money if he doesn't have, you know, some sort of goal to hit?
It's really rude of them not to think of Brian.
Yes, how could they?
As long as I get paid in meats, I'm already all set. No, I'm
Did
good.
You know about the
That's fair.
But no, just to like recap, and I'm going to try to do this briefly. There's a lot of like levels to this, but there are 4 levels in this new program. There's the developmental level, which is like we think you might be kind of cool, maybe down the road. Who's to know? And then there's the bronze level, where they're like, okay, you're not bad. And then there's the silver level where you're like, we really like you. Not like you're not our like first choice to go to the prom with, but like you're almost there. And then there's the gold level where they're like, you know, they might be the one. You know, that's pretty accurate, like to what the levels were.
But I thought the silver level, like I looked at this a little bit. I thought silver was like you have a requirement that like you have to go to Pan Ams or Worlds. So like I think the silver level is still pretty freaking like important.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just said important like that. That I sounded really uneducated there for a second. Anyway.
Before unless Brian knows, he might have memorized this whole thing. Before we botch the details of this, I just want your thoughts, just generally speaking, on this program in general. I'll start. I think it's great. I think it's long overdue. I think it's a great idea on so many different levels. It gives people goals. People love goals, especially type A people who do weightlifting. Like everyone loves goals. Everyone loves like being involved or being able to say or feel or whatever, share that they are a national level athlete. And this gives multiple layers of that, which I think is also cool because like the reality is an overwhelming majority, 95% of the lifters in this country are not ever going to compete at Worlds. It's Senior Worlds. They're just not. But that doesn't mean that they're not incredibly talented. And this gives people like different levels and structures to be able to justifiably say, I am among the best lifters in the country. And it gives people a pathway to get to that level too, which I think is also good from like a communication standpoint. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it's they're not easy goals, right? They're definitely like strive for them. It's not just a matter of like winning senior nationals. Like that's just not enough for this, if I'm remembering correctly, right?
Yes,
You've got to
right.
really and actually show potential for international placement. And that's really cool. I also really like that because I'll never be on that level. I like that there's a reward for the coaches as well, right?
Yes.
Like I think there was there's some sort of cash incentive for the coaches. It's super interesting to see how like that actually plays out, in terms of coaches maybe poaching, maybe you know what I mean, like just like more aggressively.
No, that doesn't happen in this country, Brian.
Not in this sport.
We are honorable people, and no coach in the U.S. would ever deign to engage in such unscrupulous activity. They would never.
Yeah, but I think it's really cool that it's like it's a recognition that an athlete doesn't get there by themselves. They get there, based on their strength and performance and all that. But there is a support team behind them, and so I like that aspect.
Brian, you tell James that he needs to get on it, because on the day that he wins a gold medal at the Senior Worlds, you, Brian, will earn $2,000.
$2,000. Let's go. Come on.
I know. Yes, there are monetary rewards for the coaches as well, which cool, great. I'm all for people making money. There are monetary bonuses for athletes too. When James wins a gold medal at Worlds, he's going to earn $8,000, Brian. $8,000.
No, I'm going to go ahead and like draw a gold medal and stick it on his bag as inspiration for him.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any like concise way to go through each
level.
All
right. So one of the highlights I kind of wanted to point out, up until this point, athletes were paying for their Team USA gear, and I appreciated that that's now included. I think that was a very poor optic that we used to have. And I think this is a way better, that like you earn that. You don't have to just buy it. I don't know. I like the optic of that. I also like, just from a development perspective, I think this will be really helpful for us to keep younger talent in the sport. I think our biggest, I don't want to say issue, but like one of the biggest challenges that we face, I think, in this sport is that we have these kids that show great promise, right? They move so well. They love it. All of these things, but they don't see a path to how do I make a career out of this, right? It's no secret that weightlifting is not a very lucrative sport, right? You have to really, 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 really grind. And a lot of people just aren't going to make it, and they can't make a living off of it. And so you have a lot of fallout at the youth level, the college level, because people are pivoting into their careers and their livelihoods. And there's just not a whole lot of incentive to continue the sport. And so I think this will be really, really helpful for just athlete retention with those younger pools of people. And hopefully we see less fallout from it. That being said, I don't totally understand the logistics of where this money is coming from, if I'm being entirely honest. So that's my biggest question mark and skepticism with it. And I don't want to say I worry that it won't last, but I just don't know how they're going to sustain it. So just to play the other side of the coin, like I think this is a really, really, really wonderful idea, and there's a lot of great features. I'm skeptical as a person.
I actually don't know where the funding comes from. I mean, there is currently already funding in existence for athletes, right? It's right. A limited amount, and candidly, like either there's not a lot of transparency around it, or like I just have been so far off the radar that I haven't, been
right.
tracking it or whatever.
Probably a little bit of both for me.
Yeah, I have not seen, anybody lay out how this is going to be paid for. I also, I'm not deep into like the Reddit, threads that I'm sure are being had about this topic. So
I don't even want to know what Reddit has to say about this. I'm staying so far away.
But maybe someone has asked and maybe someone has explained. I think this may be the only aspect of my life where I'm just choosing to just like let a good thing ride, and like maybe it lasts for a year and maybe it lasts for 10 years, but like,
sure.
It's not like, just hypothetically, I have nothing to back this up. I'm not suggesting that this is the case, but just hypothetically, let's say that like they're paying for this through some sort of nefarious means. Let's just say the worst thing that happens here is that people get more and better exposure to the sport. And so if it all comes tumbling down, or like, I can't believe they did this, like they paid for athletes to get better, they access to, I'm reading some of this, biomechanics analysis and review, access to sports psychologists and sports nutritionists, funding to go to, national training camps. Like, I can't believe it, I just like what hand wringing is going to be done here even if like this is all like built on, glass or whatever, like sand. I don't know what the phrase is. Brian, I'm not intelligent. Can you help me out here?
No, I can't. But the biomechanics thing, I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, that's actually a really cool aspect. Yeah, I've talked to a couple athletes who have gone to a USA weightlifting thing and done some of that analysis beyond just force plates, et cetera. And they come back and they're like, it's really cool stuff. And the benefit of them doing it through USA weightlifting, as opposed to just like buying a bunch of equipment and doing it on their own, is like somebody tells you what to do with all that data that you just collected, right? We all have like these Apple Watches and Whoops and Oura Rings and blah, 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 like collects all this data, and like we don't actually do anything with it other than be like, ooh, neat. Like my barbell goes this way. Sorry, my barbell goes this way. Sorry, coach. But like I've heard a lot of people say really good things about that, and that one was available for like almost every level, right? Like that.
I mean, they so the way they set it up is, I'm looking at their graphic that they put on the interwebs. Every level gets it. It's just a matter of how frequently you get it. So for the biomechanics, like the developmental group, they get it quarterly. So even 4 times a year more. To your point, like you get 4 times a year guaranteed, some intelligent person is being like, okay, this is all great data. Here's what it means. That's cool. The bronze level gets it monthly, as I guess bronze, silver, and gold level get it monthly.
I think they might have been testing this out too at nationals, because before my session, they told us that like they were collecting data for, I forget what the university was, but there was like, they were collecting this biometric data, and they took videos of all of our lifts, and they ended up sending us a link. They were like, here's your videos if you want them, like, as a thank you for letting us collect your data. So I know this has been in the works, and I'm sure it'll be really helpful.
Yeah. That said, I can't wait to talk a bunch of shit whenever we find out that this was done like really like under the table, and like, somebody, Mike Choi's been taking money, and like, we don't know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's just, also, I feel like, is this the part we edit out? I don't know. Mike Choi is not taking money under the table that we know of. I'm sure it's fine. God, oh boy. Speaking of Mike Choi, I feel like we should hold him personally responsible for Masters athletes not being a part of this.
He claims to care.
Yeah, he
claims to care.
Claims to care.
I could get some hate for this, but I'm in favor of that. Wow. If I'm being entirely honest with you. Yeah.
Respect your elders. Abby, you're in the presence of your elders. How dare you?
My elders can beat me up if I want and take my lunch money, but I think that was the correct thing to do. Personally.
It would hurt too much to move quick. The amount of like explosiveness that we would have to beat you up it was just not worth it the next day. There's a lot of like
you've aged out of beating me up. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Also, all right. So Abby hates old people, and Mike Choi is a mob boss. These are the things we're learning this week.
This might be the episode.
So much for being here. Like, we've never had this kind of commission structure before, and it is delightful.
This is the
Nobody
most
will
hot
ever
takes
hear
I
this
think we've
episode.
ever had
This episode won't ever make it into the wild. I'm sorry, guys.
in the vault.
Good while it lasted. Yeah.
Abby's version.
Oh boy! All right, Brian, tell us
Let's
about
talk
yourself.
about poll. Let's talk about poll before we pivot.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay,
Brian. I
sorry,
want to
go
BS
ahead.
a little longer.
Sorry, Brian. We're gonna have to wait. Just hold it down a little bit longer.
All right. I'll send
All right, what are we talking about, Abby?
The poll that I did
Your
this
idea. This is your topic. What do you?
my one brain cell is off duty, guys. I'm really sorry. Anyway, so I did double poll this week. I don't know if anyone noticed that, and we had a lot of engagement on both of them. So thank you everyone for playing. The first one was a serious poll. I mean, serious, like, but that was the wrong choice of words. The first poll was like a regular poll. I can't remember what I polled. I think it was barbells. But then the next day, so
Where are we going with this?
can you let me get there?
The
I'll
first
get there.
one, well, I don't know what it was about. Well, it's hardly relevant.
Guys, before we
right.
talk about something concrete, we want to talk about something ambiguous. Let's go on a journey with Abby. All right, cool.
Polls generally. Okay.
No, we're waiting patiently, please.
You're in my car right now and I'm driving, okay? So I'm currently in this training cycle where everything is timed, right? Every 2 minute on the minute. So I had every 2 minute on the minute clean and jerks on Tuesday at 92 kilos. And I did my first set and then I died for the rest of them and had to tack on a bunch of singles at the end. And it was the worst thing I've ever done. Truly the worst exercise I've ever done in weightlifting. Hated it so much. It was so challenging. And then the next day, my friends over at DC Barbell tag at DMV and my friend Hannah cleaning 90 kilos for a set of 5. And I was like, oh my God. And I like sat there for a second because like I'm still wallowing in my own self-pity at this point because I'm thinking about how terrible my clean and jerk triples every 2 minutes on the minute were from the night before. And Hannah's over here doing almost the same weight for 5 cleans in a row, which is ridiculous. And so shout out to Hannah Gilmore. She is ridiculously strong and I need her to compete like now. But I sat there and I was like, what would I actually rather do? Would I actually rather clean 95 times or would I clean and jerk it 3 times? And I know how I feel, but I wanted to know how the rest of the DMV feel. The general consensus was that clean and jerk triples are somehow less terrible than clean 5s. But Stephen, Brian, I want your takes before I give my take on it. Now we're at our destination. By the way,
We've arrived. I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Would you mind? I just no. I'm kidding. I think I'd rather clean 5
why?
than clean and jerk 3. Because clean and jerk 3 is actually 6 reps, right? So
is 6
you have
reps.
3 cleans, 3 jerks. It's a lot.
Way to insert math.
That's how I feel about it too.
No,
That is how I
it
feel
how
about
adds
that.
up.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah, and my shoulders are frail. They're fragile, and so just thinking about my collarbone and having to clean and jerk that, I don't know. I think I would survive the 5 better than I would survive the 3.
Okay, Steve.
I would rather clean and jerk 3, and here's why. And I
Okay.
got to be careful with how I say this because I one time described myself as a jerk specialist, and that was interpreted incorrectly. So I am a specialist when it comes to the split jerk movement in weightlifting.
I would agree. Me too.
And also just relative to my split jerk, my clean is atrocious. So the idea of cleaning anything 5 times, frankly, regardless of the weight, sounds miserable. Clean and jerking something 3 times seems not that bad.
Okay.
That's fair. I think my legs are way stronger and I can I'm much rather do the cleans. I don't ever doubt myself on the cleans.
Wow.
The jerks, I rarely have confidence.
Have you tried hating yourself just a little bit more? I always find that helps get me through the jerk portion.
I think about it, but I feel like I get so much hate from everybody around me when I'm lifting that there's no more room left for hate internally. But you're telling me there's always room left internally.
There's always just a little bit more room. There's always it's there. You just gotta search for it. Abby, please tell us.
Yeah, I decided I would rather my clean and jerk triple. the idea of pulling something off the floor, something that heavy off the floor 5 times, just hurts my back. I'm like in the middle of an overhaul of my pull technique still, and we're finding that my back is a little weak in the positions that I need to be in, and so like I think. Would clean fives help me? Yeah. Clean fives would probably be better for me than clean and jerk threes, just because, like, I mean, I've got, similar to Steve, like, I've got kind of a monstrous jerk in comparison to my clean. I've split jerked 120, and my best clean from the floor is 110. So, once I do the hard part, like, it's going to go overhead. And no matter how tired I am, like, the jerk's going to go overhead. So, like, would I rather clean and jerk triple? Yeah, because cleaning off the floor 5 times just sounds really, really, really painful and difficult for me. Should I be doing clean fives instead of clean and jerk triples? Probably, but
did any of your? I mean this genuinely. I don't want this to come across as like sarcastic. I'm genuinely curious. What is the intent behind clean fives?
I think probably conditioning and strength. Again, like if I'm putting my coach Abby hat on, or my think like my coach hat on, I can see value in, you're putting your body under stress and you're making it tired, and you're still expecting yourself to hit the positions that you're supposed to be hitting. If you're gonna do it like super sloppy, yeah, don't do clean fives. But like Hannah's last 2 reps looked exactly like her first 3 reps, and like she hit her positions and did it really well. And so I think there's a lot of strength building to be gained if you're doing it properly.
And I guess that was maybe where my mind was going with that. I don't think it's as simple as would you rather do clean fives or clean and jerk threes, because I don't think that intelligently anyway you would program the same percentages for both. Right. In order to ensure that you were getting what you were trying to get out of the clean fives, you would prescribe that at a lower percentage than you potentially could for clean and jerk threes, where
probably
reasonably you could go 80, 85% depending on the talents of the individual athlete in clean and jerk threes. I doubt that you'd be able to do that for too many people for clean fives.
Yeah.
Just because on reps 4 and 5, like, maybe they survive it, but like at what cost and to what end,
And I also think there's a level of building up to that. Like, Hannah's very strong, and so I don't want to discredit her in saying this, but like knowing her coach and the way that he programs, there's a really strong chance that she's been doing clean fives for a few weeks and that she is built to this point. And so she's gotten used to doing it at much lower percentages too. And so, to Steve's point, like, and to coaches out there who think, yeah, I'm going to give my athletes fives. It's definitely something that should be built into so that, it is done properly and isn't just wasted and you're not just killing yourself for nothing.
This cycle, I did do clean and jerk 3+3s.
Ew.
And that was miserable. That was probably one of like the toughest complexes I've had to do.
So like 3 cleans and then 3 jerks?
Yep. And I can't remember the percentage. I would guess around 75-ish. But it was that third jerk was just like the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
I hate re-racking more than anything. That's the next poll. That's the next poll that I'm doing on Tuesday. Everyone, they're gonna be like hearing this as they're seeing the poll go up, but I'm gonna ask about like re-racking jerks and like. Anyway,
Brian, this is why you have trouble finding that little extra amount of self-loathing. The re-rack is where it's at. Like you have to embrace the re-rack.
Don't spoil too much. We can talk about that another time.
All right, we'll talk about it another time. Just to recap this portion of the show, if I heard Abby correctly, if Hannah Gilmore is willing to sign up for the Just Strong Open, Abby will pay her entry fee.
She will. I absolutely will. And you know what? I'm going to send her this clip as soon as we finish talking.
Did you want to talk about the second poll, or were you just want to talk about the first one?
That was the poll that I really wanted to talk about because I felt more strongly about that than I did barbells. I have my Eleiko bar, which I'm just a little bougie like that, but I don't think anyone really got like animated about it. And I definitely and on that second follow-up poll, I specifically told everyone that I didn't want to hear their opinions. I was like, just pick one. There's no other, and I don't want to hear your opinions. I was busy this week, so.
All right. All right, Abby, any other topics before we get to our guest?
No, you have my blessing to begin the interview.
Brian, it's great to have
What
you.
do you want to know?
What do I want to know? I want to know so many things.
Yeah.
I want to know who harmed you as a child to make you the way that you are. No?
Oh, man.
Sorry, different type of interview. Different. My bad.
Here. Let me do hot question two. Who's your favorite committee member besides yourself, and why is it me?
Oh, my favorite committee member is Heather, because she doesn't talk smack about me ever. She's just the actual nicest human
committee
being.
member that doesn't talk smack about you.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry.
Heather is really wonderful. Quite the unsung hero, in my opinion. But
all right. In all seriousness, I do want to know, and I think that people would like to know. I think people by now, thanks in large part to the work that Brian does, that Abby does, that many members of our committee do. People actually know that we exist as a WSO committee, but your role is more involved and more unique than the rest of the board. So when you took this assignment, one, you didn't go into being on the committee knowing that you would be president. That just kind of happened after the fact. Yeah. You're welcome. But did you come into, once you realized that was going to be kind of your role in this whole thing, like, did you have specific things that you were looking to accomplish or ways that you wanted the board to, be and interact with the community? Like, or were you just kind of like, we'll see how it goes and we'll make it work?
I needed to make sure that Steve had a platform to express himself so that he would stop taking it out on everybody near him. This is just like him screaming into the void is what's most healthy for
screaming at your moms, actually.
Yeah, just screaming at Brian and my mother's for months.
Yep. No, I think our committee has and historically has had for the prior WSL committees a lot of grand ideas. Like you end up, people don't, like run for this WSO thing unless they actually want to see some, something out of this committee, right? Whether it's new things, whether it's improvement, whether it's just shining a spotlight on existing, like something. Everybody goes. And so when I was duped into taking this president role, I think immediately, like, I viewed the role as like project manager. Right. Like we could have these monthly meetings, and unless like we're actually moving the ball forward, like none of the ideas will come into fruition. And so from the very beginning, we all sat down, we said, all right, let's just talk about all the things that we could possibly be doing this upcoming year. And we talked about obviously the WSO championships. We talked about increased social media presence. We talked about finding a way to connect club owners, be able to communicate with each other and plan things together. We talked about a whole slew of things, and like by and large, we've checked a bunch of those boxes, and that's because I think our committee is willing, like, to actually like do the project management portion. It's not just a bunch of but it's not a committee of a bunch of thinkers. It's a committee of a bunch of like think and doers. It's really nice.
And me. I'm also here.
And Steve, also present.
And your friend Steve. Sorry.
Were there has that role been what you thought it was going to be? Has it been more challenging, not as challenging? Like, how has it been? There was the way you thought it would go, and now you're 10-ish months, 11 months into it. Like, how's it actually gone?
It is not as challenging as it perhaps could have been, and I think it's because two things. One, like I said, the committee's really good. The committee, the folks that people elected this past cycle around, like they're all people willing to roll up their sleeves. That's awesome. You can't ever ask better than that. The other thing is, I think like the DMV community was really hungry for an active WSO committee to pull it all together. And so it actually didn't take much from our committee to get a bunch of buy-in from club directors, meet directors, athletes, across all 4 of the states that are represented here. We say, hey, like, what do you guys think about this? And everybody's like, yes, Les, please do that. Thank you for taking the initiative of that. It's kind of been an easy role because people are hungry for it.
Mhm.
And you are in your spare time, your day job, I don't know, you are an attorney at a very high level for a rather large company. I don't know how much you want to share and don't share. I don't, that's up to you. But like, my point is, like, you don't have a stress-free existence outside of being involved in this WSO board, being a coach, being an athlete. Like you are squeezing a lot into like a finite amount of space. Like how has your regular job informed and kind of enabled you to execute your job as the WSO president?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So my regular job is I'm a general counsel of a media company, and I've been there for 10 years. So it's been a while. Part of that role is, managing a team. It's corporate governance. It's a lot of stuff that actually translates fairly easily, fairly well, into, giving back to the USA weightlifting community. I don't know. I don't like a lot of downtime. I like to fill, my time with things. And so when, this opportunity arose, it's like, great, that's another way for me to pour some energy back into weightlifting. And it's kind of cool because I've met so many interesting people, and it's like a different way of thinking. Even like, how do I improve as a coach? How do I improve as an athlete? Like, just talking to other coaches and athletes allows me to like keep developing that without the stress of like actually picking up a barbell. Like, weightlifting by osmosis is really like what I'm planning for 2025. That's how we're going to get PRs, just weightlifting by osmosis, hanging around Big Jake if we can find him anywhere.
And as you mentioned, kind of, and that has been my experience too. I think Abby would agree that the community was very welcoming of the degree to which we wanted to be involved with them. Have there been any parts of your role that have been maybe more challenging, or that like is taken longer to kind of carry to fruition than you thought might be?
There are a lot of different personalities throughout this area, and Steve being the most challenging of the personalities that I'm referencing here. But other than that, like, everybody
working with me is like swinging with a weighted bat. So then when you work with everybody else, you're like, man, this is easy.
It's a cake.
Not a problem at all.
It's a cake. No, I would say the most challenging part is probably finding a way to balance everybody's interests here, right? Like, everybody actually has an idea for how they want the WSO committee to look like and to behave. And they all have that idea with the best intentions in mind, right? Best intentions for their club, best intentions for the DMV area. And so I think the challenging part is just like absorbing all of that, taking it into account, and then finding a solution, finding, a happy medium that gets us most of the way there. So that at worst, even if we don't end up, doing a thing that one particular person wants, they can understand the reasoning for why we didn't, and why, this one maybe serves the community in a different way than what they were proposing. So that's the part that just like takes a little bit more time. It may hard is probably not the right word for it, but it does just take a little bit of finessing on it.
Okay. And backing away from the WSO portion of your life for a second, I've known you we've known each other for what, 10 years now, something like that.
At least
we've tolerated each other for 10 years. I don't know, like,
that's the better way.
Yeah, sure.
Tolerated Steve's version.
But like, no,
sorry guys.
I get what I've been most interested in is that's not fair. You're an interesting person in all respects. Sorry, Brian. I didn't mean to like pigeonhole you.
My one nugget of interest. Let's hear it.
One interesting aspect. Among your interesting.
Don't tell Christopher.
Among your interesting aspects has been kind of your the growth in your interest and abilities as a coach. Which, please correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't seem like that was like always there. And so I'm curious, what kind of sparked you going down that path? And then, obviously you have come a very long way to where you are now, which is a very highly skilled coach. And as I'm sure you will say, many people have helped you along the way. I'm more interested in kind of the origin story for how you got down that path from just being kind of like, you started off as a CrossFitter, if I remember correctly, and then you kind of like dipped your toe into weightlifting, and then like you kind of dipped your toe into coaching, and then like just went like full on in. And like how did we get there?
Good question. When I started, I certainly no intentions of coaching when I started CrossFitting, or started doing CrossFit. I was convinced by a coach. You'll not be surprised to learn that I am not the most athletic person in the room. I rarely am the most athletic person in the room. Thank you for holding back your laughter as much as you could on that. But I had one coach at the CrossFit gym I went to who said, "Look, you don't have to be the best athlete to be a good coach. You connect really well with people, you understand the movement, and you have a really good communication ability to communicate." Really didn't want to botch the way I said that one, but and those are kind of the elements of coaching, right? So give this a shot. Try coaching CrossFit. See how you like it. And that was fine, and it was good, and I developed a lot of skills that way. And then I really fell in love with just the barbell aspect of CrossFit, which is when you said dip your toe into weightlifting. That's when, before I joined my current club at CHFP, like I was just lifting in the back corner of the CrossFit gym, minding my own business, doing some sort of online program, right? But only doing barbell at that point. And then it actually brings back to Ambria. Ambria joined CHFP before I did, and eventually, the weightlifting cult got me. She's just like, "Dude, you're one of us. You don't realize you're one of us, but you're one of us." And so, eventually I do a couple of technique seminars with Kara, et cetera. And I say, all right, I'm going to jump over to that side, still coaching on the CrossFit side. And actually being quite reluctant to coach at CHFP, right? That club is led by an Olympian. How do you be a coach, under that name, when that those people are not coming to the club because of Brian Leung, right? They're going because of the CH portion of CHFP, and it's really quite intimidating, quite frankly, to coach and to ask the question of like, "Oh, but like, what is Kara working on?" Just before I screw anything up, And it took a lot of time, a lot of hand holding from Kara, quite frankly, is saying like, you don't have to agree with everything that I say. Like, you have your own perspective and you have your own way of communicating. And when you see something, you don't have to worry about what they've been working on, with me or what have you. Like, you're the coach, on the floor at the time. And so, she really instilled a ton of confidence in me, and obviously like the hard skill set of coaching as well. I could a whole list of names, none of which are Steve, that contributed a lot to that. So.
I wanna stop for a second, Brian. So just based on the way you describe it, I've known Kara for, oh gosh, I think I met her in 2018 at a competition that I was doing. But like, I don't know her that well, but it just sounds like she really does a nice job of empowering you as a coach to, make decisions and to develop yourself. And like, yeah, she's there for you, but like, it sounds like she is a very empowering person as far as like getting you to just, do it yourself, so to speak. Can you talk a little bit more about that and like, how that feels? Feels.
We're talking about feelings. Oh, I hate talking about feelings. All right. No, Kara's big thing in this area has always been about community, right? Like, and building some level of community, whether it's the non-competitive athletes at the gym, like the club athletes at the gym, whether it's the competitive team, whether it's the coaching staff, or whether it's just like going to a random meet and talking to folks and getting folks comfortable. For me, what was your question? How her empowerment makes me feel, right? She a lot of what she's done at CHFP, or since starting her business in the DC area, has been about actually coach development, right? She's done this like coaches roundtable for quite some time. She teaches the level 1, and it's I to this day I would say like I'm still a little bit intimidated by Kara. And I spend a lot of time with Kara, right? Like, her as my coach, and then us as colleagues coaching other people. Like, she knows so much. She knows so much. But she's also willing to teach all that she knows. Like, she's not a gatekeeper in any of this. You ask her questions, she's going to explain, like, why she does it this way, what the other options of doing it are, and why she's gone down this path. Some of the things that are just not obvious. So, like, we should make this call because based on my experience, this is how this will happen, right? And an example of that is, lifters who have to compete early in the morning, right? That first early weigh-in session, it's rough, and and a lot of times, we will make our athletes do like 3 to 5 minutes of burpees at the very beginning, right? And people will look at us like we are crazy because weightlifters are not out here doing burpees, and certainly not before a meet. And there's no like magic science behind it, other than she says, in her experience, a lot of people in that early session, when they finally get to the clean and jerk, they'll say like, okay, now I'm like starting to wake up, like I'm starting to really get into it. And they're like, we should have been there an hour ago, man. Like, we gotta wake the system, shock the system up early. That's and she shares a lot of that stuff with me, with other athletes, with other coaches.
Really cool.
And it helps just accelerate, I think, like, the coaching path of like, I don't have to go through that experience of coaching a bunch of sleepy athletes before I figure out, a different way to coach.
That's cool.
Do you, for you personally as a coach and as a masters athlete, like, do you have specific goals, like for near future, long term? Like, what are we hoping to get at here?
The coaching goals are a little bit tougher to define, right? Like, because, would I relish the opportunity to coach somebody at international meet? Absolutely, right? Like, if I can find an athlete, develop an athlete, and bring them all the way up that track, super cool. But like, when I say like, oh, I'm doing this coaching thing so I can hit that international title or whatever, no, of course not, right? Like so the coaching goal is a little bit tougher for me to define what the goal is, other than like be good and make other people be really good.
Don't stop. All right, got
it. Minimum standards here at DMV Weightlifting. As an athlete, like I've got numbers in mind that I'm chasing. I've got podium positions in mind that I'm chasing, right? Like, it's just it's almost intimidating to like, I'm almost nervous to say it out loud because of like how big the gap is right now. But I think that's what kind of makes it a good goal, right? Is that it does kind of scare me a little to know that, like, if I can even get towards that path. So really big numbers and first place finishes at a lot of meets.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
When you first met me, did you recognize immediately, like, kind of like how awe-inspiring I was, or did it take time? Like what was how did you navigate that in your mind,
I remember I met you on paper before I met you in person, back when you were a reporter, right? Back in your journalist days.
Damn, Steve's previous life lore.
Yeah.
I did not think this is where the conversation was.
That's where it's going.
I regret asking this question.
Yep. I don't know how much you want me to share or not.
Please go for it. I don't care.
Yeah. Steve covered the mighty Virginia Cavaliers for a newspaper many moons ago. And I had started a UVA site that has since become like one of the better known UVA sports sites out there.
Damn. Okay, Brian, flex a little harder.
You did a great job of humble bragging today, Brian.
Hold on.
This anecdote was supposed to be about how we know each other, and now it's like, well, I started this blog.
I'm so cool
awesome.
and influential.
No, that was a CYA, because I didn't want to say like, and I was a blogger, which, to be honest, I was a blogger. So there I was blogging about UVA, and there Steve was actually writing for a newspaper about UVA. And I passed my judgments on Steve beforehand, because he actually knew nothing about what he was talking about, as it turns out, as a writer. And then 20 years later, 15 years later, or whatever, like, he actually doesn't know anything about anything that he talks about. Like, that's just consistent throughout his life. So.
And you know what? Like, people appreciate consistency. I am full of shit on paper. I'm full of shit in real life.
Damn.
I am who I am, guys. You know, like
Your mom's proud of that, I think.
I
Your mom's accepting of that, I think.
your mom might be proud of me. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Maybe
Oh.
if I can make your mom proud of me and you can make my mom,
We're
like that's like
gonna cross
pride by
reference.
proxy. Yeah, I think that works.
You guys just said your mom more than I say your mom on the DMV page. That's one of my favorite. I don't think I did that this week, actually. Damn, I'm slacking. I'm going to have do double your mom jokes next week.
Oh.
I approve of this.
Thanks. Thanks, legal.
Brian, would you mind coming on the show in maybe like early 2025 so we can talk about like what the DMV committee has in store for the good folks of the area in the next year?
Yeah, I'd love to. We as a committee have already started doing 2025 planning. Contrary to popular belief, we did not all take massive vacations after the WSO championships. Abby may have.
I took a 4-day vacation, please.
I don't.
Massive.
I'm gonna tease a little something. I know Brian didn't want me to say this, but since he promised that it would happen, I just want to let everyone know. You heard it here first. Brian is guaranteeing that the 2025 WSO championships are going to be held on an aircraft carrier in the Atlantic Ocean. I don't know how he's going to pull it off, but he's done everything he said he was going to do so far. So, Brian,
the requisition has already been submitted. If we don't have enough funding to fund the national program next year, it's because we have a freaking aircraft carrier, you guys. It's going to be awesome.
Wow,
all right,
circle.
Before we A, insult anyone else, or B, make other promises we're definitely not going to keep, let's wrap up this week's show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a lovely Thanksgiving. We'll be back. The next episode we do will be the last episode before AO Finals. We got a bunch of people in this area that are going to be competing at AO Finals. Brian?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Brian will be there?
All the works.
Man.
What about Jake? Is Big Jake going to be there?
There's no shot Big Jake is going to be there.
I think there's a better chance that Big Jake's child competes at AO Finals than him competing at AO Finals. Oh, boy. All right. We're going to cut this off now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you in a couple weeks.